you talked about this guy, right? Like you really like this guy, and this guy said that he doesn't want to date, but he said he likes you, right?
Yeah, so he's dealing
What?
with codependency issues that popped up, and he
Okay,
wants to work
so
on himself.
so then, what is his need to stay associated with you? What did he say to that?
He said that he doesn't want to burn this bridge, and he doesn't want to jeopardize what we could have by not doing the work for himself right now.
So, if I'm being honest, in a
Does it
weird
sound
way,
like
what he's
shit?
saying is, yeah, it generally is sometimes.
Yeah.
But if so, what he's saying right now is, hey, Caitlin, I'd like you to wait for me to be the backup because I want to know that if I want to spend my time with you when I'm ready, that you're available for it.
Yeah. Well, and
Is
he's
that the
technically, yeah, he's also technically still in California. He's moving up here, but he is not in like Washington. I live in Washington. He's not here yet.
right? Okay, so what is your feeling when he said to you that he said this stuff to you? What was your feeling around this situation and even around the trust of his communication with you?
I felt very triggered, and this is actually a common thing that happens for me when I'm talking to someone, and like it's going really well, and we both are liking each other, and then all of a sudden they drop the bomb. Oh, I'm not ready. This is a
Right.
very common thing that happens for me.
Caitlin, thank you for bringing that up first and foremost, because just last night I was actually teaching a class on the current gauntlet on attachment styles. So they're in the week where they're going through their attachment styles and their attachment wounds. And something that I really believe and I teach people is first, there are no such things as coincidences. And the second thing is even if you believe in a coincidence and you believe in something that's happened once, if it happens more than once and more than twice, for damn sure, it becomes a pattern. And if it becomes a pattern, it becomes a pattern because the universe is trying to show us something that we're not seeing. So what often happens in this pattern is that the wake-up call starts to become bigger and bigger and bigger. The pain of the pattern becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets to a point where it's so painful that it actually makes us create some change. It kicks us off our ass and wants to make some change. Now, I wouldn't want for you to get to that point, but for all of us, it takes something. Like for me, it definitely took the point where it got extremely painful before I made change. So I understand the happenings of that. But I'm going to eliminate him from the equation right now because I love the fact that you've jumped online because this gives me an opportunity to connect with you. And you're the one whose heart is on the line and you're trying to figure that out, right? He's just a reflection of something in your environment that's showing you something that's happening constantly. So let's focus on you. You said that this happens frequently to you. The similar pattern where you get into an association with a guy or with a partner or someone and you talk to them and they get closer and closer. And then you said there comes a point where they suddenly say, we should be friends.
Yeah, just all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm not ready for a relationship.
Right. And before that, was your association with them in any way sexual?
Sometimes.
Okay. Would you
Not
say more
all.
often than not?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And this is a really trusted and safe space. And I appreciate you being really vulnerable with me because the more open you are, the more that you'd be able to get value also in return. That's just life, you know?
Yep.
So, okay. And would you say that in all cases almost, the association became romantic from your end for sure, because you wanted to have something with these guys, right?
Yeah.
And in all cases with them, was it romantic and then they suddenly withdrew, or was it that it was always on the surface and then they claimed like, hey, you know, where's this coming from? I just want to be friends.
It was always romantic. And with this one in particular, it felt very different with this one.
Okay. So you're giving me a lot of info, which I really appreciate, which helps me like understand the context more. So would you say, Caitlin, in this situation that with all of these guys, you have invested in them pretty strongly because you've wanted to build like some kind of hope with them, some kind of strong connection with them, right? And so each of them, if we're looking at the underlying layer of, unfortunately, what they've given you is rejection, right? So I want to take you back now, way back. We're not going through a really deep meditation session, so this will have to be more cognitive and more in terms of what you're actually aware of rather than what's in your subconscious. So it may be tougher, but we'll try this. what was your emotional connection and relationship with your dad?
Well,
Classic therapy question and thrown out
it's
there.
not good. Yeah,
Okay,
no.
can you give us a little context if you don't mind?
Yeah,
Emotionally, at least.
he was an emotionally unavailable alcoholic who was verbally abusive.
Right. I have a question for you because you said he was an alcoholic.
Mhm.
Do you think, were there moments when your dad was sober that he was more affectionate to you, and when he was drunk, he used to get more aggressive, or was it the same across the border?
Um, he was kind of an asshole all the time, but more of an asshole when he drank.
Right. So that helps already quantify something for me. But are you the only sibling, or do you have like more siblings in your
No,
family?
I'm an only child.
You're the only child. Okay. And what was your relationship like with your mom? But,
She
but
loved me a lot.
okay.
She loved me a lot, but whenever this would happen between me and my dad, she would get emotional and overwhelmed and would start crying and would ask why we couldn't get along.
Okay. Would she get protective of you, or would she distance herself from?
She would distance.
Okay. So, what do you think a child who is exposed to this situation where her safest place, or the representation of her safest place, of a man who's supposed to love her, validate her, protect her, keep her safe, if a child is exposed to a man who does the opposite, which is abuse her verbally or
Yeah.
emotionally, who rejects her level of affection and connection, and who creates um, a heavy or a very rigored relationship, what do you think happens to that child in that moment? What just guess. You don't have to play a therapy game here. You can just guess. What do you think the child would feel?
Um, Invalidated, that their emotions don't matter, that pretty much just whatever you're feeling is not important. Just bury it and make it like bury it to keep the peace.
Yeah, but what would you think the child would do? Let's say if a child at the end of the day all it knows is love, right? It knows like this feeling of wanting love, connection, etc. And if this child really wanted it that bad, would the child go after the dad, you think, and like try to convince him? Because the child doesn't know like what alcoholism is.
Yep. Oh yeah, and be a chameleon and do everything to try like
Right.
overachieving, people
Mhm.
pleasing, like
Right.
anything to get the validation. Yeah.
Do you think you did that with your
Oh
dad
yeah.
when you were a kid?
Mhm.
Okay. Now I want to ask you a really challenging question, Caitlin. First, I want to say I really appreciate you truly, truly for being able to talk about your wounds so like vulnerably, because this is something like people like you are my heroes. I look at people like you and I'm like, these are the people we should strive to be. Someone who's willing to say, this is where I'm hurting, but this is where I want to heal. So I appreciate you first and foremost for doing this. And, if you're watching this, I know you're getting value from our conversation. And I think you owe it to Caitlin to give her a little bit of love for that, to give her a little bit of gratitude because she's here, standing here, or sitting so vulnerably and sharing what she's going through. So please, if you're watching, give her a little bit of love. I think she deserves that. So I'm going to come back to where you talked about how you did all those things to chase your dad and to get his love and be a chameleon.
Yeah.
Now, completely authentically, right? With all honesty in your heart, between you and me, eye to eye, do you think that you gave too much too soon to these men in a way that you wanted them to just love you from the moment you spoke to them, to connect with you and value you from the moment you just spoke to them?
Yeah.
And what did that look like for you, that giving too much, you think?
Oversharing parts of myself that I shouldn't have shared. And I'm really good at like making the space for people where they want to share with me and they want to open up with me. Um,
Mhm.
but then I don't, it's not really reciprocated. It's mostly they're opening up to me so much. And then like I will share a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're being really honest, do they give you that level of attention that you've given them when they're opening up around their pain?
Not always. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's be a little more honest and vulnerable here.
Yeah.
Sexually, do you think before you felt really safe with these men and connected with them, you've allowed yourself to, you know, give yourself a sexual experience with them before you felt like they earned it in some way? They earned your trust, your connection, your safety?
Yeah.
And again, truthfully, has that been reciprocated by them in a trust or safety or companionship or anything after?
No.
Right.
No.
So I think you see what I'm getting at here. And it's not to be able to pull you apart in any way. It's actually to be able to give you material that you can use for yourself moving forward. So for you, a valid question could be like, okay, yeah, it's like, I fucking know this now. Like, now what? Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this shit now? You tell me this, you tear me apart, you do this, what do I do with it? This is powerful material for you to realize that what is for you, you have been giving to someone else. It's true. And you say this so strongly, especially in a place where you say, I am willing to listen to all of them, but they're not willing to listen to me.
Yeah.
I have one question with that may get so challenging for you. You're willing to listen to them to that extent, right? And you're saying that they're not willing to listen to you, or they haven't listened to you. Have you really listened to you? If you know that moment after moment, man after man, relationship after relationship, they haven't fulfilled you, they haven't been able to connect with you, they haven't been able to give you what you need and deserve, have you been able to listen to you?
No.
So where do you think the listening should start?
With me.
Yeah. And, I know this is really painful right now. And again, I really appreciate you truly for being able to do this in front of like so many people, because you have no idea the value you're giving to people. Truly. I think my aspiration for humankind is that we can all stand naked on the streets, metaphorically, and stand there naked in our emotions and say, this is me. And I'm not afraid to be me. And this is who I am. This is what I'm hurting from. But this is not who I want to be forever.
Yeah.
I want to grow from here. And it's only in us accepting that this is who I am, this is where I am, this is what I'm hurting from now, do we give ourselves the opportunity to say, okay, then that means I can step up from here. If we're not fully accepting this, then we're constantly chasing an idea of something else. Like even saying, a lot of the times, this is the problem I have with labels, is that a lot of times therapists especially will label someone a narcissist, someone an anxious attachment style, etc. And I've been there, like I've worked in therapy for like so many years.
Yeah.
But it makes it easier for us to just say, okay, this is me, I'll sit in this label. But then where does my truth of where I need healing come from? What are my own individual stories?
Yeah.
Who takes the time to really listen to where my own connection was with my own father and with my own self right now? So part of, again, the next question you may have is, okay, I need to listen to myself. What does listening to myself look like? The first thing it looks like is for you after this call to sit with a book and a pen and paper and say, what did I want from every one of those men? I wanted love. I wanted someone to hear me.
Yeah.
I wanted someone to connect with me. I wanted someone to maybe guide or protect me. I wanted someone to show me some level of commitment, right? Commitment is a huge one, massive one. And I'll come back to why. I wanted someone to show me safety through that commitment. Now, if you write this list of all the things, and there may be more things and there may be different things, but if you write this list of things, take a piece of paper and divide it by a sheet into two. On the left, you write, what did I want from all these men? And on the right side, you write, how can I meet all of these needs myself right now? And this is super important for you right now, because the goal of life is not always to live by ourselves. It's not.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to tell you like, no, your relationship is only to be with yourself forever. No. But what I am telling you is that you first need to develop a healthy relationship with yourself before you can attain a healthy relationship with someone else.
Yeah.
What's going to happen otherwise is, remember, as I've said, and I keep saying, relationships are mirrors. So if I'm in a place where my relationship with myself is lacking, there's no commitment to myself or not enough commitment to myself in terms of boundaries, like eating healthy, sleeping healthy, working healthy, regulating, meditating, journaling, whatever things that are there, how can I expect a man to step into place to commit for me? Right?
Yeah.
the image of who we are and how we want someone else to treat us is given by how we treat ourselves. And so how can we ask someone to truly like form a relationship with us if we don't know what a relationship with ourselves looks like?
Yeah. When I agree with that, and I have a question.
Please.
What do you do when I'm not dating people? Because I took a break like for a couple months and like started therapy and stuff, and I really developed a relationship with myself. And then I started talking to people again, and then was triggered. And like that sense of self just went away. But I had it when I wasn't talking to anybody and was just myself.
Right. So would you say that you had it just because you were not exposed to things that could let you see parts of yourself? So say, for example, if you lived in a place which was dark 24/7, right? So let's say you were born in like the Arctic or the Antarctic.
Okay.
And you were born in a place that was dark 24/7, and you were like, this is great. Like, I can see everything in my light. Like, you know, this is bright as fuck. Like, this is as bright as it gets, and it's beautiful. And then you travel to fucking India where the sun is like on your ass like 94 like hours a day. And you're like, holy shit, this is just burning the fuck out of me right now. I mean, naturally, it's going to like intimidate you, right? But it doesn't mean that there's no sun. It doesn't mean that there's no darkness either. Both of those places exist.
Yeah.
But we have to find the right balance for ourselves. So maybe the balance for you would be to live in Sweden, where you'd have a better regulation on the fucking like daylight time and nighttime through like, you know, where it is. But that's the truth, is that a lot of the time, and this is, I tell people that when they're alone, it's one of the most valuable times to work on themselves. I actually just put out a video about it like yesterday. So it is so important for us to be able to recognize that time to work on ourselves when we're alone. However, that is not the place we can live forever, because as human beings, we're social beings. So as we start encountering people little by little, we have to observe those triggers and understand how those triggers are gifts. Triggers, everybody, this is for all of you who are watching, and this is one of my favorite topics on triggers. I teach this in like week 5 in our gauntlet, understanding our triggers, our masks, our survival programs. But triggers are amongst the biggest gifts we can ever get, because they reflect back to us what needs healing. They reflect back to us an opportunity and an avenue in our life where we need a little more understanding, healing. What are we sensitive to? So let me ask you in those moments, if you can tell me one thing right now, what is one thing that really triggered you when you started talking to people again?
The not getting a response back. Like I'll say something and then they won't respond for like a day or two or whatever.
Right. So here's a better question around this, right? So you say you worked on yourself and you did the therapy, where in that period of time you worked through some of these, like, for a lack of a better word, these anxious dependency modules, which is that, you know, I need to be in contact with someone, I need to hear about them from all the time. But when you're alone and you're not being tested about it, how are you actually doing that inner work? Because you're not actually understanding the response from someone else, how long it affects you or when it affects you, because you're not even being challenged by it at that point. So at that point, you're like sitting there and you're like, I'm probably healed because I haven't spoken to anyone. So that must mean like, it must be great. And then you speak to someone, you're like, well, God damn it, people are still assholes. Nothing's changed. I'm going back to the fucking Antarctic, you know? But people have been reflecting.
Kind of what I did. I'm like, I'm back to, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah. And it's, the thing, however, is what that does and the space that we get into. This is why sometimes alone time, which is magical, can also be a mask. A mask is something that we wear to, when we look in the mirror, make us look a certain way, but we're not that certain way. And what happens a lot of times at alone time, we think that, oh yeah, this is my alone time that I'm growing and thriving, whereas sometimes that alone time is just running away. It's just avoiding. And in your case, as you said, I stopped speaking to people, I started speaking to people, and there was a huge gap in between because you weren't speaking to people. You were avoiding that trigger. But that trigger is your answer. That trigger is your gift. You have to go through that trigger so much that you realize each time you change your trigger response. So let's say right now you text a guy and you expect a response from him within the hour. He doesn't respond. Immediately you're triggered. You tell yourself, you know what, starting tomorrow, I'm going to text a guy and I'm going to put my phone away for 2 hours. Why? Because that's going to condition me to believe that I don't need to get a response from someone in 2 hours. So what happens now is what? You get used to the 2 hours.
Yep.
So if someone responds to you within 2 hours, you may feel safe, but you've given yourself 2 hours irrespective not to look at your phone so that you don't wait for a response. Now, what happens if someone texts you within 5 hours, right? Then you're like, holy fuck, okay, I'm still getting triggered. But each day you grow and condition yourself to feel more internal security. And the internal security around getting a response from someone else has to do more with how safe am I feeling within? How trustworthy am I feeling within to know that if that guy is responding within 3 hours or 5 hours or 7 hours, it's actually nothing to do with him. It's to do with me feeling safe in this moment, right?
Yeah.
And so the next question, however, can be like, well, then am I going to wait like a year to condition myself not to respond to a guy? No, because at one point you will get to a place where you realize, you know what? I'm at a 6 hour or 8 hour response, and I feel like this is safe for me. This is rational and safe for me. It's not safe for like, you know, Buddha or like Jesus or whoever else. Like they may have better response times, but like 6 hours is good for me. I'm just going to clock it here and I'm going to do that. But you're more aware of who you are and what you want. I want to ask you another question because we're talking about response times, right? How many times have you messaged a guy? The guy has I can already see you smiling because you're like, yep, that's happened. I know it's happened. It's coming. How many times have you messaged a guy? The guy has said to you, you know what, I'm really busy. I'm not going to respond for the next few hours, blah, blah, blah. Like maybe 6 to 8 hours or some shit. Or like, I can't respond to you for like the next 2 days or something. And you've said, oh yeah, you do you, you know, don't worry. I'll figure it out. Like, you know, you're probably busy. I don't need to talk to you for 2 days. But you're anxious as fuck for 2 days, but you still give him the space. How many times has that happened? It's happened before, right?
It's happened before. But at the same time, I feel like that doesn't happen often. Normally, they just don't say anything. I feel like I'm less anxious, though, when I get that kind of communication than if I get nothing. And then they don't talk to me for days.
So why do you think that is?
Because they communicated that they're going to be busy.
Now that is exactly. So this brings us to another topic of the ego. Yeah. So the ego is this like really crazy, like think about the ego as the invisible man. Actually, that's perfect. You don't know where he is. You don't know where he or she is like, you know, showing up, but they can manipulate situations like crazy and nobody has a fucking clue. So everybody's like, oh my God, it must be me. Did I fucking do it? Did I like put my underwear in my head and walk around in the streets? It makes no sense. Was it me? Did someone do it? No, it must be me. I don't see anybody. But that's what the ego does. The ego masks itself so well that it makes us feel like we have done something in a certain way or we're getting something, so we should feel safe and secure. So when those guys communicate to you, it's your ego telling you, ooh, at least I got a little bit of that drug. So that's good. Okay, this drug, I'm less anxious. I'm a little more peaceful. Great, I can survive. But what happens at the end of the day? It's still rejection.
Yeah,
right?
I'm still anxious, yeah.
Exactly. So it's important because the reason that comes about is because we're trying to work with, think about it as like a handicapped, a handicapped situation. Take, for example, a game of football, I was going to say soccer or basketball or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
You have to throw like a shot put ball. So you have to throw an iron ball weighing 30 kilos into the fucking basket. And then you have LeBron James who's standing next to you with like a regular basketball and he's just working his magic. Like, how are you going to beat the guy? But you're working in a situation that's working against you. So the first thing is not about what that person's communication is. The first thing is about, why do I need his communication so desperately? Why do I need his response and his care and his attention and his validation so desperately? It's because I'm not giving it to myself. Now, in the times when you're by yourself, and a lot of us have said like, oh, when I'm alone, I'm really healing and I'm growing. The question then becomes, have you actually given yourself that love, care, and attention? Or are you just avoiding the fact that someone else is not giving it to you? You see the difference?
Yeah.
Are you actually giving it to yourself? Or are you just avoiding the fact that they're not giving it to you? And you're just basically, because you're avoiding it, you're ignoring that it exists.
Yeah.
But the invisible man is still there. So I know we've talked a lot and like I've probably put a lot onto you and, you know, given you a lot to work with. But in my opinion, for you, like you're a beautiful girl. You've got so much lovely energy. Like it's so easy for me to say like any guy in the world would be lucky to have you, but that's fucking true. The only problem is you don't believe any guy in the world would be lucky to have you. And so you need to first realize that and you need to first believe that. And then what's going to happen is that people are not going to be able to avoid it. Men will see that energy oozing out of you. That's what confidence is. It's a belief in the self when you don't give a fuck. And men will see it. Everybody will see it. Your own, I don't know if your dad is still in your life or not, but even he will see it. I swear to you. It really happens.
So
You have a question.
I have two things, but like this
Right.
person say that, like, I do have in the beginning, I have that confidence. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure that is what attracts men to me. And then it slowly, like, I dim myself.
Right. So isn't it the same as telling yourself, I need to take this time away from these men and I need to be by myself? And then gradually for the next month, you're just avoiding. And then by the end of it, you're like, I feel like I'm ready. I'll go back. And then you're like, oh, no, here we go again. We're going back and back and back and back. Isn't it the same thing?
Well, fuck.
So, yeah, this is why I just want to tell you, this is why people hate me, just being completely honest. But this is why in that space and the time that you have, you need to create constant commitment. Would you like a man? This is exactly why a man will show up for you on the front, because you're ready for it on the front.
Yeah.
And then you start bailing on yourself midway. So he's starting to bail on you midway. He's just following exactly what you asked him to do. So how can you actually blame those guys in the end, right?
Which
Isn't it crazy?
Because I feel like I'm mimicking them and I'm getting like mirroring their energy. When it's all me.
You probably are. And that's why, like, those guys have some own version of like fucked up shit they have to work through, and that's on them though. It's not on you. So the part that's on you is to create a constant commitment every day. So here's what I'm going to ask you, okay, guys, everybody who's watching, we have Caitlin now, and we can hold her to an oath. All right? We can hold her to a promise that if any of you who are on here know Caitlin, please check in with her. Caitlin, I want you to check in with me, okay? So you're going to check in with me once every week for the next 5 weeks, okay? So every Tuesday, you're going to say something?
I'm actually doing the gauntlet in May, so I...
Oh, shit! There you go!
So yeah, I can check in with you, sure. Yeah.
Yes, now you have no choice. You're coming to the lion's den, baby. Yeah. I'm telling you, now I'm just going to rip you apart. But this is perfect, and this is good. Yeah. But I want you from now till May, life still goes on. Like, we can still have like magic in our lives, and we deserve it. So from now till May, I want you to tell me and to commit to everybody here 3 things, Caitlin, that you will do every day. Okay, 3 might be too much. 2 things that you will do every day to give yourself the commitment that you wanted from the men. So what are 2 things you can do for yourself that will help improve your own level of commitment and love to yourself? 2 things that you can do every day without fail.
Going to the gym, because I do that, and that is one of my self-care love things that I do for myself.
Okay, well then that's not counted since you already do that. So next. Yeah.
Getting my eating, like, I'm really like committed with my working out, but my eating is, because you were talking about the anxiety thing, and my stomach gets stuck all the time because I'm in this constant state of like anxiety. So getting my eating better.
So instead of eating, might I recommend another one which can ultimately help your eating? Breath work. Okay. So can you do 5 minutes of breath work every single day?
Yes.
Okay. Let's say what time works best for you in the day?
I'm assuming this would probably be best in the morning, like first thing. Or
no, like, you pick a time that works for you. See, I want to make it as easy for you to make sure that you don't falter on this. So if I give you too much of a challenge, you're going to be like, yeah, well, it doesn't fucking work at this hour. I'm not going to do it. So I want to be able to give it to you at a time that you can actually make it work. And then from then you can step up the challenge. But first, whatever time works for you. But you have to fix a fixed time every day. What time would work for breath work?
Oh, like with my work, so I'd have to make sure that like I don't have a meeting at that time or something like for work.
Yes, because this is priority. Yes, okay. So this is priority. So before you go to bed, wake up in the morning, whenever those moments are that you know you will make time for yourself.
I would probably say right when I wake up then.
Perfect. Okay, so 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Let's say, are you good with 10 minutes? 10 minutes too much?
Yep. No, I can do that. I will do that.
So I want you to Google, and YouTube is phenomenal with this. I want you to Google a guided meditation video on inner peace, right? Just Google. There's like a billion. Find one that works for you, that you feel is very tranquil, calming. And everybody who's listening, this could be the same resource for you. I literally did the same. People ask me how my meditations are so influential, and I love meditations. But it's really because I used to listen to different ones every day when I was growing up, because I needed that peace. So for you, 10 minutes every day, including, okay, you can take Sunday off because I don't want to be a hot ass, right? And you need a break so you feel better. So if you're drinking Saturday night, you're probably not going to wake up Sunday. So I'd say 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, every day when you wake up, 10 minutes of this guided meditation. Make this time. Even if you have to wake up 10 minutes earlier, you must. Because this is your commitment to you. Okay? That's one. Second one, what other commitment can you give me or tell me that would induce more connection and value for yourself?
Probably dedicating time to read. I've never been really good at journaling, but I have a feeling that's going to change after the gauntlet, because I know that there's a lot of journaling involved.
Yeah. So you don't have to like jump into journaling if you want, because you're going to get into it anyway in May. So don't worry about that.
Okay. Reading, probably like finding, like I have a couple books that I've wanted to read, but I haven't read them yet.
Okay.
Or do you have a suggestion for another good thing? Because the first one was like on point. So
listen. These think about these more as like forceful recommendations. All right, they're like things that I say that you must do, which are really fucking good for you, so you must do. Just think about them like that, rather than like suggestions. You know, it's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
But what is something? I have a question for you, rather, which will help you get.
Okay.
What is one thing, apart from like a sexual thing? So let's not think sexual or physical. What is one thing that you'd like for a man to give you? If you were with a man, what is something that you'd like for them to give you? It could be emotional, it could be time-wise, it could be anything. What is something you'd like for them to give you?
Like safety.
Okay. How do you think he'd be able to give you that? If you had to put it in a tangible way, how do you think he'd be able to give you that?
Like the reassurance, I guess, like the reassurance, and like that
verbally, you'd say?
Yeah, the verbal reassurance.
So which way would you prefer reassurance? Would you prefer it verbally? Would you prefer it in terms of a gift, or in terms of an act of like love, or in terms of like flowers? Which way would you prefer it?
Either verbally or like time spent together.
Okay. So let's take verbally, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your answer. That is the second thing you need to commit to giving yourself. So if you're saying, I want a man to verbally commit his love to me every day in some shape or form, that is something that you must now do for yourself. Remember I said, draw that sheet. And it's something that is very realistic for you to actually give yourself.
Yeah.
So let's say verbally, if I were to say to you, before you go to bed at night, write down 3 things that you appreciate about yourself. And then just before you go to bed, wrap your arms around yourself, close your eyes, and just rub and touch your body. This sounds really weird, but I'll give you a little context to it. I went through a time when I went through a terrible breakup, ripped my heart out, and I was in the same place. And I was like, I need to fucking get over this so that I can heal. So my time that was spent alone, like I chose to like get into the hermit stage and like dig and challenge and grow. And one of the things was, what do I want from women? What do I want from a woman who loves me? And I wanted someone to really like, I wanted someone to really cook for me because I love food. And so I wanted someone to really cook for me. I wanted someone to like be able to touch me. I wanted someone to be able to like, because I'm very like sensual. And so I was like, okay, these are my needs. And I actually wrote down, I was like, how can I give these to myself? And so I would actually, just to give you guys, I don't want to go on for too long, but I would start cooking for myself. Out of the blue, I didn't cook just to survive. I started cooking as if I was feeding someone else who I loved. So I started doing my food up better. I started like, plating it well. And I did this thing, which is so weird, but helped me such a large amount. I would envision, because mine was a strong mother wound as well in my relationship. So like, I'm obviously suffering from like a lack of affection from my mother. So I would imagine someone really nurturing who was my partner, feeding, like making the dinner, which I was the partner. I'd plate it. I'd put it in the center of the table as if I was reaching across the counter to feed my love. And I would go around the counter, go to the other side, And I would take it as if I was me accepting and receiving that love and that dinner from my partner. And I did it every day. And as weird as it sounds, I did it all the time. And before I went to bed, I would actually envision the feeling of love and being touched, not by any specific person, just the feeling of love and being touched. And I would actually touch myself. Yeah. I would touch myself like that. I would touch myself like in a way I knew I loved being touched, like back of my neck, like sometimes just rubbing back of my hair, like I was someone who was just like touching my head and stuff. And I would do that, and I would go to sleep. Thank God I did it alone, because people have been like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? I actually did that. But after, it took me a few weeks, the level of self-love and security I felt was tremendous. So full that when the chance came out to socialize with people, what happened to me in a weird way, I'm just being honest and not comparing it with you, was the opposite. People started coming up to me all the time to talk to me. And I used to play soccer at the park, and I was working out, and women would come up to me and just like sit next to me and talk to me, and they'd want to get to know me. And like, you know, I'd go for walks with them and their dogs, and I met so many people. And for me, that was also important because I was in a new city. I'd moved to Toronto, and it was phenomenal. I didn't run out to look for it. It's like I was giving out this kind of energy just by sitting there that people just wanted to be a part of. And something I can tell you about you is that you have that energy. That's the thing. You just don't know you have that energy. So this is your method to start that process of bringing it out, to see, okay, Yap was like fucking bullshitting all this while. Let me see if this works. Open up about it. Try it. Practice it. And see if you can bring that magic out of you to be able to connect with.
Yeah, because I get glimpses of that with myself. And I like friends tell me that about me. And like, so I believe it, but then deep down I'm like, they're fucking lying.
You hear it, but you don't believe it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, but that's the thing is that like, if they're saying it for a reason, no? I mean, again, it's so funny. I was talking about to someone else, and I put up the same post about it yesterday where I said like, you know, if you doubt when people treat you nice, like, you know, there's something up about your own belief. It's not a reflection of their actions, it's a reflection of our self-worth. So this is a space then for you to like allow yourself to challenge yourself to slowly step into that and to like move into that space. So does that feel good for you? Do you think you can do those two things every day?
Yeah, breath work in the morning, and the guided meditation for inner peace, and then the 3 things that that I appreciate about myself.
And
because physical touch is also like my primary love language. So doing that,
exactly. Whose is it not, right? Like everybody wants to be touched and wants to be loved. Yeah, it's so powerful. Like someone told me once, and this is something that resonated and stayed with me. It was actually a partner I had at one point in my life, but she said sometimes what a woman really wants from a man is just to be able to look at him and just feel that he really wants to make love to her. And it's not even like an expression of like language or talking or saying it or any of that. It's just a feeling of like that desire. And that desire exists because we connect with ourselves and we know we are capable of that desire. We know we deserve that desire. So that's the same. But that starts with us first recognizing that desire exists, you know?
Yeah.
So, so do that stuff. And if anybody like catches you and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And if it's illegal somewhere, do not bring up my name. I definitely don't know what just happened. I didn't say anything.
I didn't get it from you.
I promise. You didn't get this from me. Okay. You didn't hear this from me. But yeah. Are you going to do that every day?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you. How do you feel right now?
I feel good. And
you have another question?
Yeah, just one little one. But also, I just keep running into this because it keeps happening. And I know that it's possible, but deep down, I'm like, that's not how I'm not going to get to that point. Like, I just keep, like, I've done a lot of work and haven't gotten there. But what I was going to ask is, like, it goes in line with, like, the whole dating thing, because you said it's that I, like, avoided it, blah, 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 blah. In your opinion, do you think, like with what you've learned about me so far, that during the gauntlet would be a good time to avoid dating while I do the inner work?
The truth is, and this is my honest truth to you, I would recommend that you spend this time with yourself, but doing things for yourself. I would not recommend you to spend time just by yourself and not do the inner work. Because if you're not going to date right now, you have the choice. I would prefer that you spent this time to discover who you really are and to give the love that you first really need and deserve. And don't get like confused by external, like, affections and like, love and like, even the withdrawing of love that comes with it, because that can just fuck you up again, right? So spend this time to really discover your own love. But if you're spending this time, you have to spend it right. You have to learn to commit to yourself and do those things to show yourself love and give yourself that love in this period of time. Otherwise, it's just wasted time. It's just stuff that just disappears. I want to say thank you for like being able to be this vulnerable. You can see how many people got value from it. So this, just to let everybody who's watching know, this is what I do a lot in the Gauntlet. This is a process called compassionate inquiry, by which we take someone's pain and we go backwards gradually with compassion, with openness, with understanding to where the wound exists. Because from that process, we then get to understand how it's showing up, where it's showing up, and honestly, what a solution could be.